Yeah, rolling.
Wow.
Hello, and welcome to Cinema Smackdown.
I love that cue, Michael.
Where could it have come from?
So this is the first time Tess has heard the show in weeks.
Years, really.
Certainly, year has rolled around.
Yeah, I've been really busy, guys. So.
All right, let's do this a little properly.
So,
welcome to Cinema Smackdown for January 13th, 2019. Let's get the year right. I'm Michael Brody. I am joined by Shane Simmons and our returning co-host, back from her internship in Guadalajara, is Tess McCrae.
Hi, guys.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I missed you. I missed you, my adoring audience.
For a moment, I thought you were talking to us.
Oh, no, definitely not.
how was your assignment in China?
I can't talk about it now.
Okay, part of the release negotiations?
Yeah, exactly. A gag order, if you will.
Good to know. We have been, for the last 2 weeks, counting down the most overlooked movies of 2018, and we are continuing that thread today. Shane and I have a few movies we're ready to talk about. Tess has come prepared with no movies.
I have one movie that doesn't fit the category.
I've seen none of the movies that we have seen, but we'll weigh in.
The vastly underpraised and underwatched Into the Spider-Verse, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's very underrated.
No one's heard of this obscure little indie film.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't promote it enough. It can't be. It is one of the best films I've seen this year.
Look, I've seen a lot of movies this year. I didn't like pretty much any of them, so I'm very excited about a movie that I not only liked but really loved. Like, it was really, really great and original. So we can get into that in a bit. But go ahead, Michael.
Anything that properly promotes bagels the way that film does is aces in my book.
I also really liked, what's her name's haircut.
Oh my god, that was the best. That was the best storyline plot point. The birth of a haircut.
The birth of a haircut.
Which is the birth of a friendship, which is the birth of a romance.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
This this is radio, so I will say that I feel that she stole my haircut, and that's why I enjoyed it so much.
All you need to do now is start wearing a hoodie and a
white hoodie with a
outfit.
skin-tight spider leotard.
I do feel that by Halloween you could probably pull
by
off that
Halloween I
outfit.
can pull it off, yeah.
Grow out your hair just a hint more, and a little bit of a
platinum blonde
dye job. Yeah,
yeah.
platinum blonde dye job, which is coincidentally what Shane is wearing today.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what he wears to the studio every day.
Well, me and my platinum dye jobs.
Correct.
It's really hard doing the beard.
But the way that it swoops around back over the head.
It's magnificent. Really.
Yes, I do enjoy using my beard as a comb over.
You're really wasted on radio, Shane.
We have to get you on some Olympic twirling rings, those things, I think. That would really...
Well, I did try Olympic synchronized swimming, but my hair clogged the drain.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Oh, a common problem for people of your hairishness.
Well, radio it is, then. So, Shane, why don't you start us off with our first overlooked movie of 2018? What was the one you wanted to talk about?
Oh, yes. So this year we saw the release of a certain John C. Reilly 19th century buddy action film period piece that was billed as a comedy, but you see it, as it turns out, that wasn't so funny. And no, I'm not talking about Holmes and Watson. I'm talking about The Sisters Brothers.
I honestly think you're talking about both movies. Let's see where the path actually diverges.
Well, here's the path. Holmes and Watson is an atrocity, one of the great crimes against humanity committed in the past year. Mm-hmm. Whereas The Sisters Brothers is a lovely, interesting, deliberately paced Western that is about a pair of brothers who are...
We should mention, whose family name is Sister.
To clarify the title, they are brothers, and their family name is Sisters.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they are the Sisters Brothers.
Yes.
Not at all confusing.
You could also call it the Brothers Sisters, and the title would still make as much sense.
True. And it's worth mentioning that this is based on a novel by Canadian author Patrick DeWitt.
Mm-hmm.
So these brothers are a couple. One is the other is Joaquin Phoenix and John C. Reilly. So we don't have to get any Will Ferrell shenanigans in this one, thank God. And they are.
What do you mean you don't think Will Ferrell is the treasure of our time?
Well, he's not quite the definitive Sherlock Holmes.
You weren't with us during our screening of Holmes and Watson, where we almost clawed each other's eyes out to spare each other the pain of that film.
I was going to the ushers shopping for rope just to end it all.
And that's not a joke. That's a really rough movie. Any film that 2 minutes before release they desperately beg Netflix to take, and Netflix says, we're good. Considering the crap they put out, that's impressive.
It's so poor, there's an alternate opening to the film in the UK.
Where the film just doesn't show?
Well, they showed it, and I think they realized, perhaps a UK audience will point out that's not how Holmes and Watson met at all. So they came up with an alternate first meeting scene.
Wow.
Yeah. Which sounds even poorer than the one that's in this film.
Did they just copy-paste the scene from Young Sherlock Holmes?
If only. If only.
So I'm sorry, we were
talking about a far superior film.
Yes, the Sister Brothers.
So they're a pair of oldie-timey Western assassins.
I'd go with mercenaries.
They're specifically working to murder people for.
Yeah, but they don't ever have a job title, do they, in the film?
I think at one point they might even be referred to as assassins by someone they're up against. I can't remember.
For a rich guy named the Commodore.
The Commodore, who was played by a barely cameoed Rutger Hauer. He's in it. If you're a Rutger Hauer film, don't see this film just for Rutger Hauer, because if you blink more than once, you will miss him.
But it's an appropriate.
Yeah, it's fine. At least
appropriate character.
It's an appropriate. It's someone. It's the sort of character who needs to be someone. It's like, oh, it's him. There's a number of good. Oh, it's him. Oh, it's her. Throughout the film. Mm-hmm. Really slow paced and yet fascinating for me. This film. The whole film, I was not quite sure where it was going, and I kept checking the running time on it, thinking, well, surely it's going to be wrapping up soon. It's like, oh no, I'm barely halfway into this thing. And just when I think, oh yeah, well, it's going to climax here, it's like, no, keeps going, keeps finding new interesting things to do, as it turns out to be quite a character study of these two brothers.
Yeah, no, I've seen the movie all the way through once, and then I revisited it last night, just to remind myself. Rewatching some key scenes, I realized the movie has really clean structure. It's just so slow and deliberately paced that it sometimes you're halfway through a movie and you don't know if you can trust the story to get you to the end. You say that, you're like, I kind of like this so far, but I just don't trust this film. It has a whole hour left. What is it going to be? And then you feel like the tone is a little off. But once you know where everything is going, this is one of those films. It is a very satisfying little movie. I mean, it has... Every character in this movie is quirky and interesting. I don't know if you're about to get to this, but It's a buddy picture on a number of levels. It's multiple pairings of buddies.
Yeah,
so
true.
There's the brothers, who are quintessential buddy characters. But there's also Jake Gyllenhaal and the guy he's basically hired to go and shadow and hold in place for the brothers to come and get. And along the way, Gyllenhaal buddies up with this other guy who is essentially a science prospector, I guess?
A chemist who's developed a new way to sift for gold.
But Gyllenhaal realizes after essentially capturing and kidnapping this guy that nothing good is going to come of this. And so instead he just sort of becomes charmed by the fellow, and they become buddies. And then they have to try to escape the sisters brothers, who, when they show up, also all kind of become buddies. It becomes a giant buddy-buddy picture. And everybody keeps changing their mind about who they who they want to keep their allegiances to, considering there's nefarious ends that people have for this chemist. And I like that fact. I like the fact that it wasn't just a cut-and-dried good guy, bad guy movie, and a little bit more along the lines of, maybe we're the villains in this case, and maybe our cause isn't so great. I mean, they never say they have pure intentions. They're in this for the money.
No, everyone's sort of a bit self-serving, at least. No one's pure. And after the film was over, I had to go look at the trailer, because I'd heard The trailer does not represent the film well. And sure enough, the trailer would have you believe pretty much that this is a comedy. And it is so not. It is grim. And stuff that happens in it is horrible. And it's about just how much it sucked to be alive back then.
Yeah,
the horrible things that could happen at any moment.
It is a movie that shouldn't be billed as a comedy, but I laughed pretty
Oh yeah, but
throughout.
it's a dry, dark sense of humor.
Absolutely. There's no question on that point. I really like the film, ultimately. It is definitely an overlooked movie. It had, as I read on IMDb, it had an approximately $40 million budget and earned under 10. So it is considered a massive failure.
Yeah, it would fall into that category of Hollywood's produced and abandoned films.
Right.
Where they realize it's like, this is not going to make money. This is not going to be anybody's cup of tea. We'll lie to them in the trailer and tell them, hey, it's a John C. Reilly funny film. It'll be great.
It's
and
a Dewey Cox sequel.
If you saw it based on, this will be good for laughs, is like, you will not walk away from this film happy.
Right, but anybody who likes a good grim western with black comedy in it is going to have a ball.
Oh yeah.
You know, and
yeah.
it is a high quality film. Look,
and it's extremely well made.
There's a scale on which I rate certain movies, and this one falls squarely into it. Movies I would recommend to my dad. Dad, you're gonna love this one. Other films that fall into this category, 2016's Brimstone with Guy Pearce is another weird, macabre, but ultimately interesting and sort of funny western that I got my father to watch. And even Sweetwater was another one. But we'll get to those probably on a future weird western.
Yeah, modern weird westerns. Yeah,
exactly. So, let's see. Well, we're coming up on our ad break, so I'm wondering if we can pad this out for another 30 seconds.
30 seconds?
I can contribute the fact that I haven't seen the film.
But you've seen Holmes and Watson dozens of times now, right?
I was busy watching Holmes and Watson for the 18th time in theaters. IMAX, of course. I wanted to pay as much as possible.
I doubt the filmmakers have seen the movie 18 times. Nobody could withstand that kind of torture test.
Certainly the editor did, and at one point just threw his hands up and said, good enough.
Just click the snap all the clips together.
I was given no material, so fine, good enough.
Alright, well, let's pay the bills, and I will cut over to a couple of promos, and we will be back in about a minute and a half. Alright, well, we got through that one.
Which one did you want to do next?
It's up to you. I mean, I guess we should talk about the two other films that you've seen.
Yeah, sure.
So, we'll do those and generally just pipe in thoughts as we go.
Right.
Either one.
Yeah, well, if we need a brief break, of course, it's also The Night Comes for Us.
Oh, yeah, well, we can start with that if you want.
Do you want to have a discussion about
Just
movies?
because.
And have the iconic songs instead of
We only got like 12 seconds left.
Yeah. You lied about that minute and a half.
Yeah, I took short breaks apparently.
CJLO 1690 AM with your host, Remy.
Oh, Remy. And we're back on CJLO 1690. The show you're listening to is called Cinema Smackdown, and we are discussing overlooked movies of 2018.
Tess is so excited she hasn't heard those words in a long
Just
time.
years. I mean, decades, really.
I've
I've been wandering through the desert.
We just discussed The Sisters Brothers, which was a film Shane and I both enjoyed, and we have now clearly convinced Tess to run home and watch it immediately
I'm going to
following
watch it
this.
immediately following this.
Who doesn't want to watch a dry...
Well, we did convince her to watch Holmes and Watson, so that's the important thing.
That's where that... Let's be clear. Sisters Brothers is a massive success compared to what Holmes and Watson has done to John C. Reilly's career.
Yeah, well, you mentioned how it flopped at the box office. It's still probably doing better than Holmes and Watson, given the critical reaction to that.
I really hope so.
I've rarely heard of a film that's been so universally loathed.
Well, it's no Suspiria 2018.
People love Suspiria 2018, Michael. I'm serious. People like that movie for a completely incomprehensible reason.
Look, I am as deeply, desperately sexually attracted to Tilda Swinton as anyone. But,
I mean, as am I.
but I have to say, a 2-hour old man makeup performance was a little rough on me.
Oh my god, that was so bad. And it was so obvious. And then at the end they have this, like, stupid non-reveal where it's some made-up actor. And you're like, very obviously someone in old man makeup, and then, of course, it's Tilda Swinton.
I don't know. That sounds pretty hot to me.
But by the way, her old man makeup name is Tilda. It's Swintown in German.
Oh my god, I just hate everything about what you said.
Yeah.
I'm
not proud of that.
I have one question only. Is her makeup as hot as she was in Snowpiercer?
I gotta go.
Because that was smoking.
I gotta go 2 or 3
The
notches
Winky?
below Snowpiercer.
Oh, interesting.
Well, she has like an old man lip that's not quite glued right onto her lip, so it kind of flops around while she's talking.
There is a scene. Oh my god, I can't believe we're talking about this movie. There is a scene in which you see her eating soup or pudding, and you literally, I couldn't believe how close they got to her face, because you literally see her have to push her tongue through the prosthetic
They
to
really
reach
are.
the food.
They really like. I don't know if they didn't know what was going on, or maybe the cameraman thought that he was meant to be showing the prosthetics, because it's so obviously a prosthetic in that one scene where you didn't have to show that.
No.
So please tell me there's a Mission Impossible scene where she pulls her face off, and it's Tom Cruise. It's Tilda Swinton.
Would have been more convincing than the actual movie that they were showing us. All right, let's talk about a movie we actually liked in 2018. Shane, why don't you?
I don't have any.
We liked one.
Well, actually, I don't know if you like these. I recommended that Shane watch 2 movies for this episode. I don't know yet if he.
I was up late last night watching a couple of.
If you enjoyed them at all.
Couple of interesting. Well, we'll talk about what I would consider the much lesser of the two first.
All right.
So you asked me to watch Downrange, which is a new Kitamura film.
Yeah, Ryue.
Yeah, I don't even like to attempt the first name because that's
Sure.
I'm gonna butcher it.
All right, so the director of Azumi.
Yes. Now, Azume is one of my favorite action films from 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely spectacular little samurai film with one of the most tremendous body counts I've ever seen in any motion picture. I thoroughly enjoyed that. The rest of his work I've not been knocked out by.
Yeah, I think you're forgetting that he's the director of No One Lives.
Oh, right. Yes, okay. I was mostly thinking of his Japanese films, but...
Well, let's all right. Let's just to be clear about who this guy is and what his work is. He directed No One Lives and a movie called The Midnight Meat Train, neither of which is too many people's favorite movies, although I have a very special place in my heart for No One Lives.
Yeah, I agree. That one was
These
quite
movies
something.
are bloody, gory messes that are so well accomplished that when you see the violence in the films, it's staggering how far they go.
Yeah,
especially for American movies.
He popped on the scene out of Japan with a film called Versus.
Mm-hmm.
God, that must have been
It's
about...
more of a student film, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. It's nearly 20 years ago now, and...
It's gangsters versus zombies.
It certainly got a fair amount of attention among the zombie gangster, Yakuza, bloodshed crowd. But it's not a great film by any means. But yes, he has done a couple of films, including a Godzilla film, which had, at least one funny moment that takes the piss out of the Roland Emmerich Godzilla film, which for that alone, it's like, okay, points. But a lot of his films have not knocked me out. And I have to say, Downrange, which... should we give the premise? The premise is very slight.
It's like a bottle episode of a TV show. It's a one-location story with a one simple concept.
Yeah, a group of people carpooling. They suffer a blowout. While they're changing the tire, one of them realizes, hey, that wasn't a blowout. That's a bullet that shot out our tire. And then they realize they are under siege by a sniper.
Mm-hmm. So it's an entire movie about 6 or 8 characters trying not to get murdered by a sniper. That's the entire movie. But whether you like the movie or not, it is technically brilliant. It is a gorgeously made film. It is again, with the violence is unbelievable in some cases. Some of the successful exploding head.
He is not kidding around about his headshots.
No, and that's the reason I wanted you to see the film, was just to see something so technically expert. And I mean, you got to know, watching this film, this is a tiny budgeted movie.
Oh yeah. So, well, here's what it is. This is what occurred to me it is this year's Open Water.
Sure.
It's one of those tiny little. a friend of mine coined the phrase to go as a companion piece to torture porn. She said survival porn.
Sure.
And it is that, even though there is... survival porn is technically characters stuck in a situation where they just have to survive. There's no real villain. It's just the elements that they have to fight against. Frozen is probably the best example of that, not the animated singing film.
Yeah, but that was my own personal survival porn. Watching the animated Frozen.
No, look up the other film about people stuck on a chairlift. Frozen.
Chairlift movie.
Yes, that one.
One of the most underrated films of 2016. Is it 2016?
Oh, let's go 2009, I think.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Wow,
it's
I'm
quite old now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that
movie
one's
was ridiculous, but sure.
no, it's a lot of fun though. In a oh my god, this is a horrible situation. How do we get out of it? Open Water is probably one of the most famous ones of those, although I much prefer Open Water 2.
You've seen Open Water 2?
Oh yes.
Oh, we'll have to talk about that off camera.
Oh, okay. I was quite a fan of that one actually.
Turn all these cameras off, guys.
I had been pressuring Shane to watch Open Water 2 for years. This is the first I've learned that he's seen it.
I saw it years ago. I thought we talked about it, but okay.
Maybe we did.
Okay.
Just put it out of my mind.
So, Downrange, even though there is technically a villain in it, because there's someone pulling the trigger on these people, he might as well be a force of nature, because there's no character there. Mm-hmm. It's just, we're in a horrible situation, we're at the mercy of the elements as well, because it's a hot day, and they're just trying to stay hydrated as they're pinned down by a maniac.
I would say that, just judging by his camouflage choices, we can learn a lot about this person.
Yeah, well, given his camouflage choices, he practically is the tree. So, there you go. There's your survival porn as opposed to...
Now, this movie, I will say, does fall into a category of a lot of films I've seen in the last 20 years, which is, this movie is a short film. It's a very good short film. It just so happens to be about 90 minutes.
Yeah, well...
Probably could have been 40.
With credits, it's an hour 29. So,
right.
It's not a great investment in time. So, that's fine. And that's exactly how long a movie like this should be. And still be a releasable theatrical film.
As I said, it's a bottle episode. It's one thing and one thing alone. But I would argue that if you're going to make a movie about a sniper picking people off, this is one of the better ones that you could have made. I think it is technically so perfect. Whether or not it has of character
it's
work.
no Peter Bogdanovich's Targets.
Very true. It's been a while though.
Unless it was Boris Karloff under that camouflage.
I would
makeup.
argue it is.
Okay.
His heart grew 3 times larger while picking off those teenagers.
Well, yeah.
All right. Well, I think that
they're all green.
I still recommend the movie Downrange as long as you know what you're in for.
Yeah, it's kind of trash.
Yeah,
and
we like exploitation trash, don't we?
We do.
Grudgingly.
I was not as enthralled by the film as you were, but it was a fine little quick watch.
I don't know if I would even say enthralled. I just know that, knowing Kitamura's filmography, it had to be seen. That's my take on it. So, all right, let's move on then.
Okay, so the other film was The Clove Hitch Killer.
The Clove Hitch Killer.
Or as I call it, Encyclopedia Brown and the Clove Hitch Killer.
That is an awesome review.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, it does play very much like an Encyclopedia Brown story, except in this one, Encyclopedia Brown and Sally Kimball team up to find out that Encyclopedia Brown's father, Chief Brown, may be a serial killer.
Here's the interesting thing about this movie. When I first saw it listed for viewing, it just struck me as any one of hundreds of Lifetime or Netflix movies that was just something about a murderer in some small town. I mean, there are thousands of these now.
Well, the thing that struck me most is they make it very clear, this is a very Christian community.
Yeah.
To the point where it almost feels like, is this one of those Christian-produced films?
Right. And for a little while at the beginning of the movie, that is the sense you're going to get is, it's just a little low-budget, cutesy, but it was the presence of Dylan McDermott that made me say, well, why is somebody who is known in a film like this? his career's going fine. Why would he be in some little movie? And then I saw it had a lot of really positive reviews. I said, all right, I'm just going to jump in and try this one. I thought it was pretty rewarding. It was a simple movie, it's clean, but it was better than a lot of what I expected from a film like this. As you said, the whole Encyclopedia Brown aspect of it does kind of work.
I was really pleased with this. For a while, it kind of plods along like, oh, here's the standard route this could take. Right. And I was really genuinely concerned they were going to go with that as far as suspects and who it might ultimately be. And it turned out, no, this film has real testicular fortitude. It went through with its premise fully. To recap it slightly, it's a small town community. 10 years prior, there was a serial killer active locally. He killed X number of victims. I think it was something like 10 people. And he has been inactive for the past decade. And the son, who is like a 16-year-old kid, so he was a child when this was happening, so he has no real direct connection to it or really any memory. Enough little factoids come up that he starts to suspect, wait a minute, is it possible that my dad, the respected scout leader, was the clove hitch being a type of knot that was used to tie up the victims and mark the scenes of his crimes. And of course, Scoutmaster, he knows a lot about knots. But that's only one of several little clues that intrigue Encyclopedia Brown to start going and wondering, what's in Dad's locked shed, and maybe I should team up with the weird girl and investigate this further.
As he begins to find more and more damning evidence, his father seems to keep coming up with more and more reasonable excuses for why these things don't necessarily point to being a murderer.
Right.
And I liked that play back and forth. I had my doubts at points, just on the way the movie was talking to you.
Yeah, about an hour in, I'm kind of like fingers, because an hour in they kind of play with one of the possibilities, and then step away from it. And I was sitting there, fingers crossed, I said, don't screw this up, and it didn't screw it up.
No, it's a good movie, and it has a satisfying conclusion. It even plays with time a little bit.
Yeah, there's a narrative time twist where we see events unfold, and then we rewind and say, okay, here's from another character's perspective. And that little narrative wrinkle to the thing, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, well, this was a little bit of a festival darling. I know it played a few places prior to, I think it went straight to something like Sundance Channel. But there's a reason why people noticed it. There's a reason why it got more talked about than a lot of other things. It's a better movie than it has any right to be. Some cute little small-town serial killer movie with a kid doing an investigation does not sound like a good film, but it is. It's an excellent film. So, that's The Clove Hitch Killer.
Yeah, and, the movie night that I run every Wednesday, don't drop by because it's invite only. But I will be showing them The Clove Hitch Killer at some point. I believe I will not, however, be showing them Downrange. So that'll give you that gives you an idea of where I stand on those two films.
Give it 6 months. And when you look back on Downrange, I have a vague understanding of how your brain works. What you're going to say is...
you think I'll reassess?
I kind of want to inflict this on people. I think that's
there is that...
I think if you give them the proper understanding of what they're in for, the smallness of it, I think you'll find that it has its fans.
And, there's always those moments when I want to punish movie night because in my absence, they watch way too many Dwayne Johnson films. So I usually like to come back and hit them with something hard.
It's a little known fact, but Dwayne Johnson, huge fan of CJLO 1690, and an even bigger fan of Cinema Smackdown. And we would have had him on to promote his newest work, but frankly, after Skyscraper, he's dead to me.
Well, little known fact, but the reason his leg had to be amputated is because a tattoo he got with Cinema Smackdown got infected.
Oh my god, don't put that on our brand.
No, I know. Well, it was his own choice.
Infections?
He did that to himself, so he has no one to blame.
I blame him for his canoodling with giant CGI monsters and fake buildings in a desperate attempt to make the worst imaginable Die Hard ripoff. And it really is the worst one of those I've ever seen. That's my anti-positive review for something.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I cannot slag a film harder than Skyscraper. It is so mediocre. It isn't even bad enough to be interesting.
And also shockingly toothless.
Yeah, I mean, it is bad on every.
Well, we don't want it.
conceivable
We don't want
sense.
our violent action film to be too violent.
Yeah,
We might upset someone
It's very
somewhere.
PG, right to the end. Oh, that was a rough one.
Was that this past year? I feel like.
It was this past year.
Yeah,
not making it into our most overlooked film.
No, should be overlooked. Please overlook Skyscraper.
Please overlook Skyscraper. So that's the three main movies that we want to talk about today. So, well, you've been particularly silent so far. We'll get back to
Oh,
that.
sure.
Tess, you've been particularly silent. Why don't you weigh in with...
Because I haven't really enjoyed any movies this year.
Well, I mean, that's one of the topics I have for 2018 is, for the last 3 weeks, Shane and I have been talking about the overlooked movies and movies we've enjoyed. But, as I was saying off mic, this is a third-tier level movie year.
Yeah, these are like fun, check out these fun movies
But
kind of
on
list.
another year, they'd be in category 3.
Right.
You know, I like them all, but I don't love them, and I certainly don't think they're any kind of masterpieces. I am loath to see what ultimately gets nominated for Academy Awards this year, because everything I've heard about as awards contenders are horrible films that I thought weren't even worth seeing, let alone giving awards to.
There were more reasons than bad tweets that no one's going to be hosting the Oscars this year. It's like we just want to disavow ourselves from this entire year of cinema.
I mean, what's in contention right now? I guess The Favorite
and A Star Is Born.
Mary Queen of Scots, A Star Is Born.
Oh, is Mary Queen of Scots in some sort of... I haven't heard a single person mention that movie.
I assume that was made explicitly for the reason of being nominated for Oscars.
I will go ahead and argue...
There's that conversion therapy movie that was really bad.
Yeah, there's like 2 or 3 conversion therapy movies.
Are there?
There's the
Boy Erased is the one I was
Cameron,
talking about.
The Miseducation of Cameron Post.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet, although it's right up my alley, so it's weird that I haven't.
Fine.
Yeah.
That's my review. It's fine.
Well, fine is all I really need from movies that have lesbians in them, so...
Considering it's a movie about...
Fine is top 10% for lesbian movies.
Anti-gay behavior, there's some pretty hot gay stuff in it. Legitimately.
It's all I really need, Michael.
Legitimately hot gay moments of, well, don't do that, and the moment someone says don't do that, it gets even hotter.
a snapshot into Michael's mind that you never wanted to take.
But as I was saying, I think Bradley Cooper is in contention for Best Actor for playing literally the worst performance I've seen anyone give in
that's
years.
a massive exaggeration. You just don't like that he's basically doing a Chris Christopherson impression.
That's correct.
But
thank you for getting the actual person he's doing the impression of right. Because the movie itself tries to convince you he's doing a Sam Elliott impression when he is clearly doing a terrible... Chris Christopherson should hunt him down and murder him for this. I would be so
huge
on
exaggeration.
board.
I thought A Star Is Born was fine. I thought it was well executed for what it was. I thought it definitely undercut its drama at the end of the film, but...
it has a number of offensively bad moments in it.
Shangela from RuPaul's Drag Race is in it, so...
So make it an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race, and I won't have any complaints. But
So it does the one that stars the mutant space raccoon and Bradley Cooper?
That's correct.
But
it is true that Groot's performance in this, as a wallflower who learns to sing, is a bit more impressive than I would expect for what is essentially a talking tree, but not much beyond that.
The only movies I kind of enjoyed this year that I can think of off the top of my head, because I didn't prepare at all, were Bad Times at the El Royale, which I think you guys talked about last week, which I thought was quite good, but not like a stunningly, not a tour de force, but quite good. I would definitely recommend it. It's a bit quirky and I liked it. Confidently made. I liked the little guy that plays the bellboy there.
Right. We went
really
on about
excellent.
him last week.
Yeah. Okay.
He
So I
is
won't.
The movie for us. No, it's fine. It's fine. Well, did you see Hotel Artemis?
No.
I highly recommend that you watch it because it's an amazing companion piece. Because they're both movies about hotels.
Right.
Incoming uber villains, because both films have somebody who's on their way and everyone is gearing up to have to deal with, and a nice B-level cast of some A-list celebrities. That's true. Both movies have some A-list
Yeah,
celebrities.
there's some
Yeah,
listers
yeah.
in there.
Yeah, that's a good point. But they're both worth seeing.
I enjoyed it a lot. It wasn't a perfect film by any stretch, but I enjoyed it quite a lot. And then we mentioned a bit at the top, but Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is by far my favorite movie of the year, and really, I can say without reservation, absolutely excellent, unique, interesting, weird movie that does new things with the Spider-Man character, which is almost unbelievable at this point with the number of Spider-Man sequels we've had.
Well, it also does new things with animation.
With animation, with the superhero genre. I mean,
it deliberately throws in comic book elements that I thought would irritate the hell out of me that ended up making
me too.
I was delighted by word balloons, visual sound effects, speed lines in places.
It's
that
like everything you think
worked.
could never work in a comic book movie where they're just trying too hard to cram comic book stuff into it, but everything really works perfectly. The animation is so interesting, so detailed, so fast-paced,
and different.
So unique.
Yeah,
the
but
style of the animation is so unique.
Individual, unique styles mixed together.
Yeah, it's really, really good. If you're a fan of animation at all, 100% see this movie. If you're a fan of Spider-Man, it's the heart and soul of the Spider-Man that you grew up with, if you grew up reading Spider-Man, that you've never seen on screen. It's fun, it's interesting, it's like comedic, and it doesn't take itself seriously.
Well, also, happily, it is also quite sad. And
yes.
Spider-Man without sad...
It has real emotional impact.
Spider-Man without sad is Spider-Man Homecoming, and that didn't really work for me. He's just a little too
I like Spider-Man
pleased.
Homecoming, but it's still not...
It's missing
it's not Spider-Man,
that element.
really.
You need the suck that is Spider-Man's personal life.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the first time, and I've maybe thought that this has happened before, but I don't think it actually has. It's the first time I've ever gone to a movie where I was like, this movie feels like what it felt like reading comic books as a kid, where it's so, like, it's this universe of huge possibilities. I will particularly give a shout out to the character design of Kingpin. Best portrayal of Kingpin I've ever seen on screen.
Are you familiar with the source material?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Yeah, I was a huge Spider-Man fan growing up.
No, I mean the source material for Kingpin's look.
For the film?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
He is 100% taken from a Frank Miller Ray Bill Sienkiewicz drawn graphic novel about Daredevil, where he is presented as like a mountain of a man.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Where he's so exaggerated in his body type that he's 10 times bigger than a normal human in rooms with regular-sized people.
Right.
His shoulders hit the top of the ceiling.
But this is what you want in a Kingpin villain,
It
you
was
know?
very
It's like,
well done,
it's so effective. And the color use in the film is insane, and then the last showdown where the color starts getting kind of sucked out into this black pit, it was really, really incredible.
Once again, Lord and Miller, the creators of the Jump Street movies, the Lego movie, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, they've hit another massive home run. So thank God they didn't give them a Star Wars movie to call their own, because that movie would have never been the massive success that Ron Howard made it.
Mud Planet
they'd been allowed to
Han Solo
finish it.
movie. The brown filter film.
It just astonishes me that you don't hear a single person from Lucasfilm say, "Oh yeah, we massively miscalculated, didn't we? Look at that horrible mess we made that has taken down our entire series of franchises. No more new Star Wars movies on the docket other than the main series because this movie so failed." But no one says, "You know, we lost faith in the two guys who've done nothing but be hit makers for a decade."
On Spider-Man, which is a character that, if any character's had the life wrung out of it, it's Spider-Man.
Yes.
Every possible iteration, the Spider-Man fatigue.
Yeah, but you know what past Spider-Man films didn't have? They didn't have Nicolas Cage.
Oh my God!
But Nicolas Cage is having the career upswing of a lifetime this year.
Into the Spider-Verse was certainly in the top 5 Nicolas Cage films that came out this year.
I wish you were joking for real. He did make more than 5 films this year. But let's be clear, between his small role, but a small but pivotal role in Into the Spider-Verse, his even smaller but far more pivotal role in Teen Titans Go to the Movies, where Nicolas Cage finally gets to play Superman, and he plays, by far, the greatest Superman that will ever be shown on film. and his portrayal of a psychotic chainsaw-wielding revenge seeker in Mandy, it's kind of his best year ever, and his career is dead. So it's kind of amazing that he's doing this well. Included in this as well is another 3 to 5 straight-to-video piece of garbage films that he did make, several of which were released after these big movies came out, so it is just hilarious to see his career ups and downs just in 2018. I take it you didn't see Mandy?
I have not yet.
Mandy is another one that is
I've
absolutely...
heard very mixed things about it, which makes me really want to see it. But
I didn't even like it, but I have to say, you have to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And even saying I didn't like it, that's not a review. The movie is way too much movie to just say I like or didn't like it. I think it's a wonderful film for the right people, but for me it was way too psychedelic. And you lose me a little bit if you go too deep into the psychedelics. But if you take all the great stuff... But you liked Spider-Man
Into the Spider-Verse, which I legitimately
it never loses
felt...
its story. Never.
In the first 20 minutes of the movie where it's so fast-paced, and the narrative is so fast-paced, and the animation is so fast-paced, I legitimately felt like I was on mushrooms or something. Which was great. Yeah. I enjoyed it a lot, but...
I did not see it in 3D, did you?
I saw... yeah, I did.
Okay.
So that's probably why, yeah.
No, but it had... When we saw it, Shane and I saw it in 2D, and there was still very, very trippy elements to the images. In fact, in a lot of scenes, when the film is, we're watching it in 2D, it's flat. Some of the foreground stuff was still 3D, meaning you could see double images on things, which I thought was really strange. It never detracted from the main image of the movie, but there were points where I wondered if it was being improperly screened, projected, but it turns out that's just how the film looks.
No, it's just a stylistic, it's a stylistic.
I look forward to revisiting it as a Blu-ray, just to see what it really looks like outside of all of these variant versions.
I will put the caveat now that I've hyped it to hell, that it's not. I wouldn't say that the sort of writing is spectacular in the film. It's not a narration. It's not a dialogue-driven film by any stretch of the imagination. And it's not particularly deep, but it definitely has the impactful moments that it needs to have to be a really, really solid film, and then the visual side of it is out of this world. So,
well, I would say in a year with the kind of movies that we got this year, which was all garbage, this is one of the best written movies in terms of dialogue. So,
maybe.
Think of it what you will, but at any rate, I still really love that one. Between that and the Teen Titans movie, which I never thought I would enjoy, and it's just a spectacular entertainment fest. The one thing I like to keep mentioning about the Spider-Verse is it has a lot in common with, if you like this movie, it has a lot in common with Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, that's a very apt.
It's innovative and it's challenging, and it's so condensed in that every minute of this film has stuff that's fun to look at.
Well, it's heavily stylized, but in a way that's completely thought out from beginning to end. So it's not like just throwing style to kind of distract from the fact that the movie's not very good, like a lot of DC movies do. But
what's that? Aquaman didn't meet up to your high level of...
But it's heavily stylized, but with all of the visual elements being completely thought through and serving the story. So it's So Scott Pilgrim is a really great pull on that because it's exactly the same kind of thing. Also an adaptation of a graphic novel.
All right. Well, we will continue to talk about movies that came out in 2010 when we come back from this commercial message. Cool. We have 1 minute.
Oh, you're really short ad breaks tonight.
It's just the ones that I was directed to play. So we'll do your Korean?
Indonesian.
Indonesian. Quickly, because there's only so much to say about it, and we'll continue to rap about stuff in general.
Yeah. It is. There's not a lot to say about the film, but...
Discussion about movies? And have the iconic sounds of cinema?
20 seconds.
Well, tune in to our movies with iconic sounds. Every Tuesday night, 8 to 9 p.m. CJLO 1690 AM with your host, Remy.
You were listening to Cinema Smackdown on CJLO 1690, where we are running down the most overlooked movies of 2018 and overhyping movies that have been hyped to death already. But some of them are worth it. As long as they're not called Hereditary or
Quiet
Suspiria.
Place.
Or Quiet... Oh my god.
These are all the movies that are on
Bird
people's
Box.
top 10 movies of the year list.
as
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
I'm guessing I'm the only one who's
movies
seen
are all trash.
Bird Box.
I
also known as Quiet Place 2, The Quieter Place. Shane, you wanted to talk a little bit about a little Indonesian movie that we both caught a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I always like to see what is reputed to be the most extreme horror film or the most extreme violent film or nutty action film of the year. And this year, the prize probably goes to an Indonesian film called The Night Comes For Us. Mm-hmm. This features a lot of the cast from The Raid. If you remember the Raid films, The Raid and The Raid 2. Yeah.
Love them.
Unfortunately, this one does not have the benefit of being directed by Gareth Evans. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we talked about what he was up to this past year with
you didn't see Apostle. This year, did you, Tess? All right. Another recommendation of what am I watching? It's pretty great on a number of levels and disappointing on a number of levels. Certainly chat-worthy.
And it does feature no crazy Indonesian stabby action moments. Right. But The Night Comes For Us is... it begins... given its reputation, I was a little disappointed for the first half hour or so. The first couple of action scenes roll out, and when compared to, say, normal American action scenes, yeah, they're a little bit extreme, but I wasn't knocked out. And then about an hour into the film, they really pull out all the stops, and you realize, oh, this is why this film is notorious. Yeah. It does not pull any punches at all, and it just it ratchets the crazy violence up to 11. Repeatedly, yeah. And it is not shy about taking it to extremes we haven't seen since probably the heyday of Takashi Miike.
Yeah. My argument for this movie is the same as a lot of films I've seen. There are 3 great movies worth of action in this movie. Maybe more. But there's so much of it that you get numb pretty fast. If it was better paced, if you just stretch the stuff out a little bit, give it a slightly more compelling story, I would have loved this movie. But as it is, it's so jam-packed. I think it's worth examining sequence by sequence. But as a 2-hour experience, I found it, I don't want to say overwhelming, but it just beat me down very quickly.
Yeah.
Still of note, though. Still incredibly well made.
Yeah, the story is serviceable, but it is not particularly compelling. Mm-hmm. But mind you, there's a few action set pieces that roll out in this where I have to admit, okay, now I'm engaged, because it's just the willingness to take it as far as you've ever seen these sorts of scenes taken. To the point where, does it outraid the Raid? At times, its willingness to be trashy, exploitationally gruesome, perhaps, but it doesn't quite hold the same standard of excellence that Gareth Evans gave us in his Indonesian action films.
Yeah, absolutely. It's notable.
Notable, certainly. If you're looking for extreme action films, that's the extreme action film of the year, and do check it out.
Now, we still have another dozen or so movies I could talk about that I think are overlooked from 2018.
Well, we've got a dozen minutes, so...
Which I think we'll do mostly next week, because I do want to hit on my favorite movie of the year and actually give it some time, which we won't have in 8 minutes. But one of the movies that I will probably talk about, in theory, at slightly more length, or maybe this will be enough, is a little movie called Super Troopers 2.
Oh,
now,
geez.
I did not expect to like Super Troopers 2. This is not a rave by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't expect to like Super Troopers 2 because I loathed Super Troopers. Now, I hated its lazy writing, its terrible drug jokes, its incomprehensible plot, and a bunch of really garbage actors just not doing much of a job.
I loved Super Troopers, but I haven't seen it in 15 years,
Right.
so...
It's a stoner comedy, and it is only good if you are in a stoner comedy mood, which means you better be stoned. It's the only way the logic in the film works. At any rate, I watched Super Troopers 2 with a I walked in pretty ready to be angry. But
The question is, why did you walk in at all?
well, because I'm a glutton for cinema punishment.
I mean, if you hate Super Troopers that much, I can't imagine there was anyone saying, you must see Super Troopers 2, oh my god.
Well, it was one of those little movies that could, in that they tried for, it's an 18 years later sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Which they
And people told you, it's the Dark Knight of Super Troopers movies.
Well, I would argue it is the Dark Knight of Super Troopers movies. Oh, really, this is a very mild thumb up. But here's the thing, I didn't research the movie, I didn't watch a trailer, I did not realize that within 10 or 15 minutes, the characters have to venture across, they're from Vermont, and they have to venture across the border into Canada. And
you didn't see the trailer?
No, I don't watch trailers. So the entire movie has Canadian actors in it playing Canadian cops who are at odds with our heroes, the Super Trooper characters. And it was actually kind of a great Canadian send-up movie. A lot of them are not. Most of the times they do this. I'm looking at you, yoga hosers. Most of the time they do that sort of thing.
I'm looking at you, Canadian bacon.
Exactly. This one, though, I kind of dug it. I enjoyed the Canadianness of it and the light poking fun at our culture compared to a lot of the other films. But I mention this mainly in passing because, as I do most weeks, tonight I am hosting trivia at Grumpy's at 9:15.
Oh,
Grumpy's,
you're doubling down on your plugging here.
That's right. I'm doubling down on it only because I like to do a little shout out every week to something I'm going to talk about. And you will have a leg up if you have heard me mention something about Super Troopers 2, because there will be a Super Troopers 2 question
Yeah.
tonight.
Listen up, here's your cheat
Wow,
sheet.
really
Yeah.
pulling in the punters with that one.
That's right. Oh, you wouldn't believe the people who show up with a cheat sheet ready to go. It is so many people. We do trivia every single Sunday there. I host it. It's at 9:15 at Grumpy's, downtown Montreal, 1242 Bishop Street, smack dab in between Peel and Guy Metro, just off St. Catherine Street. Come and
use
join
Google.
us.
You'll find it.
That's, well,
If you're coming up from the metro, take a left at the Rats.
Let's be clear. People who are actively listening to live radio probably don't have computers.
We stream on the internet as well.
I've seen no evidence of this. So yeah, that's my plug for tonight's show. My little Super Troopers nod. I made my first Facebook post ever today, by the way. That's how much of a Luddite I am.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a little promo.
Still working
for the,
off of your cat's Facebook page, though, right?
That is correct. And in fact, he in his own voice posted about it on the Friends of Grumpy Facebook page, Grumpy's Facebook page. So
Wow.
Friends of Grumpy's Facebook page. First time I have ever written my own post, or I'm not sure I've ever even commented on somebody. I have direct messaged people on Facebook.
And now Mark Zuckerberg knows everything there is to know about you.
He knows
Yes.
all about
And has sold it to the CIA.
And the CIA has definitely opened a file on my cat. There's no question about this. Do you have a promo for us today, Shane?
No.
Something you want to push?
Oh, as usual, check out my work at my Amazon author page, Shane Simmons, at any Amazon outlet in the world where you can look at my books and the novels I've
But
written.
not buy
And
them.
oh yeah, no, but by all means, just read nothing but the free preview that Amazon provides, and then don't move forward from there.
I'd say it's a good time to catch up on Necropolis, the first book of your series, with the
imminent release of the second one. Yes.
That's correct. I think it's a good time for anybody. And if you're an Amazon, what is it? It's not Prime.
Oh, Kindle Unlimited.
Kindle
yes, if you're a
Unlimited.
Kindle Unlimited subscriber, which is the Amazon equivalent of Netflix, just read till your heart's content for your monthly subscription fee.
Yeah. So these are some things going on in our lives. What about you, Tess? Who have you been doing lately? I mean, what have you been doing lately?
If for some reason one of our massive hordes of listeners has a high-end virtual reality headset, you can go buy my game, Chiaro and
Awesome.
the Elixir of Life.
Sorry, what's it called?
Chiaro and the Elixir of Life. And keep your eyes open for our next game that we're working on today.
Ooh. Are you guys hard at work?
Oh, just today.
Just
It's
today.
going to be done by the end of the day.
Sounds like a high-quality project. I've never heard of one. Perhaps the Suspiria of virtual reality games.
You mean the Suspiria 2018 of virtual reality games?
Let's just
Please
go
tell
with
me you have motion capture Tilda Swinton.
Let's just go with the Suspiria prosthetic face of video games.
Yeah.
Yeah. In case our listeners aren't clear on this, I really disliked that movie.
Yeah,
Like,
Suspiria.
It did anger me.
And I have an issue with the fact that it's just called Suspiria, because now it just sounds like you're talking shit on Suspiria.
Yeah.
I'd like to just forget this movie ever existed, to be honest.
It absolutely did not need to be referred to as such. Its connections are
So-
so
Very, very tenuous.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's up there with the Dawn of the Dead remake as far as connections to the original go.
No, that movie is a shot-for-shot remake compared to this.
Oh, jeez,
Other
really?
than taking place in a girls' school, I would
Oh,
argue
okay.
there's
Wow.
no
Because
connection.
I did see the trailer for it, and it kind of looked like a Suspiria film.
Let's just
No,
go with
there's
this.
virtually no connection whatsoever. And I will say, much as I hated the entire film and found it to be pretty terrible and boring all the way through. Well, actually, maybe the first 10 minutes I was like, maybe this is going somewhere interesting.
Yeah.
And then...
There's a moment where you're like, I hate it so far, but it doesn't
But it could
mean
go
it's
somewhere,
bad.
yeah. And then it just goes completely off the rails. It's utterly boring in every way. And then the last 20 minutes of the movie are like a student film.
Oh,
It
is
just
awful.
changes. Not everything. Like the camera, they use a different camera. The coloring is all different.
You see digital artifacting.
Yeah, there's literally digital artifacting in the film. It's like they literally just took an NYU film school student, first year, and was like, can you just make the last 20 minutes of this movie? It doesn't have to relate to anything else in the film. Just make something kind of weird and creepy. And they threw everything that you might think a first year film student might put in to be creepy and weird.
I think they got the same guy after he finished the Suspiria when he had a little bit more chops to shoot the end of Hereditary. That was a little
Well,
better.
it's technically more
better.
sound,
So-
but
so
still
to-
the same 1970s scare tactics of nothing's more frightening than people standing around naked, I suppose.
So, highly recommend then Edgar Wright's commentary track for the original Suspiria trailers. That'll be more fun at
On
the cinema,
Trailers from Hell podcast website.
right? And to be clear, then the good Dakota Johnson film this year is Bad Times at the El Royale.
That's a good point.
Yes,
that's
is a good point,
And didn't they release another 50 Shades movie with her? I mean, that's
We can safely skip that. I'm sure probably not as grand as Suspiria, but
oh dear. Well, with that in mind, I think it's a good time to sign off on that high note of Dakota Johnson's filmography.
see, Tess comes here and the negativity just rolls in.
Yeah,
We're talking
I-
about films we hated instead of
Bitterness just
the
sucks out of my
underrated films
pores,
that
yeah.
we're trying to boost.
Very true. All right,
Well, I didn't see anything I liked this year, unfortunately. So.
Well, we'll see if we can hit a few things you actually like maybe next week.
Yeah.
I have been Michael Brody. I have been ably joined by
Shane Simmons.
and our returning in triumph co-host.
Trixie Mattel.
All right, Trixie. We'll see you next time. Have a great weekend, everybody. Trixie Mattel, eh?
I don't know.
That was all good.
I think we're still on here.
I did switch over to the auto, but yeah, they got a moment of my comment on your trixiness. We've hit a couple of moments where I've said something where I'm like, oh, are we still on?
On the air.
Oh, is that incriminating? Oh.
Yeah. Oh, I've already done the playlist thing.